Good evening and welcome to the Azeroth review, where we talk about mostly World of Warcraft stuff. And Blizzard have very kindly just provided some news, I suppose, with the WoW Classic beta going live tomorrow, actually. I don't know whether I'll be in it or not. Oh my god, go away. And also, which was piquing my interest, I've only actually just seen this, a 15th anniversary collector's set. So I was actually just having a little look at it, but I was trying to find out if I could, where we'd get it in Europe, because of course when you look on these, all the links are for US. I was just trying to have a look on the shop actually. But Evening Storm sent. Have I seen that? Yeah, so I'm literally just, well, I was just looking at it. I'm now actually trying to find out how you would order it. Let's have a look then. Go on, let's see if, I mean, it's got a nice Ragnaros statue. I say it's nice. It's a Ragnaros statue. It sort of looks like it might be nice. I wonder what it's made of. An Elixir pin. I'll tell you what would have been better for that, if you wanted to commemorate the Elixir, is like a replica Drakefire amulet. Something like that would have been maybe better. Map of Azeroth mousepad. That'll be crap quality. Don't worry about that. Fine art prints. That'll be looks. I can only see one of them there. There's another Ragnaros one. That may be alright. 30 days of game time. Trying to bung the subscription numbers up. And alabaster mounts. So let's have a look. So you've got an, oh yeah, you can see it here, an alabaster griffin and an alabaster wyvern type thing, wyvern, whatever, however you pronounce that. The box looks nice as well, you know. I mean, it's supposed to be like $100, so that'd be like 75 quid. I reckon I might swing for that, even if I'm not even playing the game anymore. And then of course the 15th anniversary in game rewards, you basically get Nefarian, don't you? You get Deathwing. Say Nefarian, I didn't actually mean Nefarian. I actually meant Deathwing. It's not Death, is it Deathwing? It sort of looks a little bit like Deathwing, but it doesn't have the adamantite faceplate thing. He's got what looks like the plates around his upper body. I can't see them around the jaw. It looks a bit weird. But, you know, a mount, a relatively unique mount. So, I mean, it's... the thing that piques my curiosity is the raid, they say. So there's this 25-man raid where you take on some of the most iconic bosses. So it's almost like, so it's not like the 10th anniversary where it's just like Molten Core, which was actually fun, especially seeing people that had never experienced Molten Core, some of their reactions. But it's like the sound, you'd go like something like, you might go to Ragnaros first and then suddenly you go to Lady Vash and stuff like that. So I wonder how they're, I mean, I can't imagine a LFR version of Lady Vash. I suppose you would have to tune that right down, wouldn't you? You can't have a past the core thing in that. So that's what's making me curious, I have to say, at the moment. The how it will look, how the raid will actually be. Are they just going to sort of cobble the rooms together, so the rooms as they are now, or are they going to just design a whole new raid, but just with old bosses in it? Classic is releasing late. Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, I sort of suspected it might be, you know, late summer, just because I was actually, funnily enough, just thinking last week, they haven't even released the beta for it. So, you know, the idea that it might be coming out for summer is disappearing. And sure enough, yeah. So the beta is going live tomorrow, and for which I haven't received an invite yet, but to be fair, when I went and checked on my settings, it wasn't actually set specifically to that. So I wouldn't be in it tomorrow, that's quite sure. But it doesn't really matter, I suppose. I mean, but August, yeah. It's another classic case, isn't it? No pun intended. what is it, August 27th? I'm pretty sure August the 27th is the day I go back to work. So, yeah, that's the day I go back to work after summer. So they're bringing it out like they did for Legion on the last day of summer after I'll have had 6 weeks off where I might have pottered about on it a bit. And then they're going to bring it out when I'm not quite at my complete busiest. Yes, I have now registered. The thing is, I thought I might be registered because I am permanently signed up for beta invites on World of Warcraft. But they've got a separate one for the Classic, which I've only just seen. So, yes. So, I certainly wouldn't be in for, you know, the release of the beta, but maybe then. So, did I hear or read how Blizzard did with Classic that they did with 8.2 Alpha? Getting some streamers to try out the Alpha before releasing it? No. But we all tried it at BlizzCon, didn't we? Albeit like a shortened version. But I don't see how a full version is necessarily going to make it a different experience. However, it always makes sense to get streamers to publicise it. And the best way to get them to publicise it is to give them early access to some sort of testing. So it's an obvious thing to do, really, isn't it? Given that they are aiming to make money out of it by putting it on the subscription, you know. You have a wedding right after that date as well. Well, yeah. But the thing for me is... Oh, excuse me. I would be permanently busy for the next 4 months. Remember, for me, Classic WoW isn't... it's not something I'm desperately looking forward to. I will potter about in it. I'll create my character. I'll probably create it as close to I remember it looking as possible, which actually will make it deeply... It looks like it's been hit in the face with a cricket bat, actually, my character from then. I didn't spend very long creating the character, shall we say. But there you go. But... S fan, is that ES fan? One of the guys, I've not heard of them. One of the guys that are already putting out videos. How do I feel about 8.2? I think 8.2 looks decent, but unfortunately for me, you know, without raiding, and even the raiding, I've said before, even the raiding I've got used to not doing anymore. So it's not enough to bring me back, shall we say. At some point, I'm not saying I'm not coming back to it. At some point, probably over summer, as soon as there'll be no WoW Classic to play, I will potter about. I'm bound to, over the 6 weeks, come back on and just do some stuff. But no, I'm not. Do you know what I'm doing at the moment? At the moment, I am playing Baldur's Gate again. I got the book. Every few years, I get the books. I think I played a little bit last year, and I streamed one session. But... I wasn't really playing a full playthrough, I was just pottering about on it. But I've decided to have another full playthrough. Unfortunately, a little early. I usually try and time these things so it coincides with a holiday. But no. And so Sunday, I cranked it up. And I just tried. You know, I was just trying a party out. I've just now made the party I want to go through with it. But I was just trying something out just to mess about. And I ended up spending all day on it. I had a list of things to do, which I didn't do. So that's the thing with me. So I've just been creating my finalised party just now. So I'm likely to be streaming tomorrow because I'm going to be playing it pretty much all evening anyway. I'm not going to be streaming all evening, but I'll stream a few hours. But it will be that. That's what I'll be playing at the moment. In fact, I was actually thinking if perhaps it might be a better idea with this Azeroth review, because obviously what we're doing is discussing a game which I'm still interested in but not playing. Like, you know, you ask there, what do I feel about 8.2? I can look at what's coming in 8.2 and give an opinion on it, but I'm not going to be playing it. So it all seems a little bit silly. So to be honest, big news, I'm probably not going to be doing the Azeroth review anymore, but I will still be streaming at this time. It's just I think it might make more sense to do game streaming, and then we can still discuss whatever while we're playing a particular game. Apart from anything else, elsewhere, the new expansion for ESO will be coming out in a few weeks as well. 8.2 won't save BFA. Well, I mean, that's a matter of opinion. In terms of, it depends what you mean by save BFA. If by save BFA you mean attract back all those subscribers who left, no, it won't. And I don't think anything will. That's just the way it is. I think, you know, it's difficult to say. Lots of people have different opinions on this. But World of Warcraft now is a game that has borrowed heavily on its past, according to some. According to some, if World of Warcraft came out right now as a new game, it would not get... It would get, you know, some people would play it, but it wouldn't get millions. So inevitably, in a situation like that, if you believe that, and I believe that, inevitably in a situation like that, you are going to always lose them. And when you lose a big chunk of them, you're really not going to get them back. You keep saying it's coming out Monday, but in-game it says June the 4th. On the website it says June the 4th. So, you know. So, but anyway. Yes, the classic release date, that's right. And, you know, I was just saying, literally the day I go back to work after summer. So I have 6 weeks off. This happened with Legion. They did this with Legion as well. 6 weeks off. And then it comes out. The game is a lie. Well, everything must be a lie. Their own website says that. It doesn't matter if it's coming out next week. That's fine. I will notice when I log on, I suppose, won't I? That'll suit me. I say it'll suit me because I'll still be playing Baldur's Gate, but I will also be streaming some elsewhere. But what I haven't decided yet is, do I stream it? Do I play elsewhere on my main character, for which I've been saving up a few skill points? Or do I start a Necromancer and just play it through on a brand new character? There's pros and cons to them. The advantage of doing it on the Necromancer is I kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I have played the Necromancer a little bit on the beta, or PTS as they call it. It keeps disconnecting me though, so it's really rubbish. So I get to experience not only the expansion properly without just doing it in the PTS, which I've only done a limited amount so I don't spoil it for myself. Or, and of course, second thing, sorry, I get to try out the class properly as well, which on first inspection is sort of okay. It's all right. You've been levelling a Warden. Oh, I levelled a Warden a little bit. They are quite nice. I still keep going back to my Templar though. Just slowly, because it's Paladin-y. I mean, that's the problem I have with Baldur's Gate actually. When I'm creating my teams, I always have to agonise about exactly what goes in my party composition, because I always put 2 Paladins in. Now, if we're honest, 1 Paladin's sort of alright. You don't really need 1. They're alright. They're decent enough. You probably don't need 2. Well, you certainly don't need 2. You probably don't even want to, but I want to. So that then creates certain problems with deciding on the composition of the rest of it. Because you've got to have a fighter. You've got to have a cleric and you've got to have a thief. And you've got to have a mage. So, you know, it's all about, you know, how you combine the classes after that. But yes, so Classic WoW is not coming out for some time yet to come. Which is a bit of a problem for Blizzard, I would argue. Because summer is a bloody good time for people to try other games, isn't it? And they probably can't really afford for too many people to feel a little bit, unless they bring in something out. Oh, let's have a think. Hold on. Because I suppose the raid would be coming out round about then, wouldn't it? 8.2. We haven't had a date on 8.2 release yet, have we? Have we? I mean, I could easily miss these. This is how out of it. I could easily miss these things, but I don't think 8.2 release date has been announced yet, has it? In which case, I mean, it can't be far away, can it? I'm just trying to think when the raid is likely to come out. I mean, that might not be out in time for summer. And if they haven't got anything major to lead with for summer, you know, I just think maybe I'd be risking just people going off and playing something else. Cut it very close with the summer 2019 release. Yeah, well, I like the 8.2 itself. I mean, I suppose if that came out in July, which it's not going to come out that late, is it? It's going to come out in June, isn't it? But if it did, then you might argue that's some content to play in July and August a bit. But without that, no. So it seems to me people will go through the 8.2 content and then be waiting on the raid while they're waiting on the raid. For those who want the raid, but that's surely a lot of people. A lot of people these days get, there's, say what you will about the different ways they do the raiding now. It encourages a lot of people to do raiding, to see it as content for them. And without that being released, it's, yeah. People are going to do other things. And when they do other things, they may find, like I have done, actually, don't need World of Warcraft. Hoping they announce something big this summer for Overwatch, are you? Leaks have been saying something is coming. You're prepared to be disappointed. See, it's not my sort of game. It probably would have been many years ago. I did used to play similar sort of first-person shooters, MOBAs, that sort of thing, whatever you want to call them. But, yeah, not anymore. Not really so much now. Just like the fancy role-playing games now, really, on computer. It's all I seem to be interested in. And of course, I've got plenty of, whatchamacallits, painting to do, my Warhammer painting. We started the local league yesterday. I got off to a winning start there with my Plague Monks. You're completely addicted to it now. Do you know what? This is coming back to Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is the only game I've ever what I would describe as being addicted to. Like, even when I used to play World of Warcraft a lot, I wasn't on it all the time. Like, I was on it a lot by virtue of the fact I was a raider. But I could easily just leave it when I wasn't doing that. I took breaks, I would just do whatever I needed to outside of the raiding. But Baldur's Gate, out of all the games I've played, is the one where I will just spend much, like literally, I was just saying, on Sunday, I fired it up about lunchtime and turned it off at midnight. That was it. 12 hours on it. Obviously, I went for I got some food and I went to the toilet a couple of times. But pretty much that was me. I didn't do anything. And I had a list of things to do. I wasn't intended to play it that long. It's the only game where when I have other things to do, I will just go and play that game. So that's, a bit of an addiction there. Fortunately, it doesn't keep me on for months at a time, because once you've finally gone through it all, then you're satisfied for another year or so. WoW Classic for mobile. That was a funny video. No, don't joke. Don't be joking about games coming out on these things, because they're doing it. They're doing it. Won't be funny when it happens, will it? Funny enough, the only games you're addicted to, anything like WoW, was Diablo 1 and 2. See, I didn't play those at all. I was aware of Diablo 2. Was I aware of Diablo? I don't remember being very aware of Diablo. I remember Diablo 2 because I knew someone who played it and they were fairly keen on it, but not keen enough to be able to persuade me to play it. But then sometimes I have ignored recommendations, even from friends. Like, literally, the same friend who got me into Warcraft, not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft, and a few other games that I really enjoyed as well. I mean, he was massive on Morrowind, but he never persuaded me. But then, to be fair, when he was trying to persuade me I should play it as well, I was playing World of Warcraft. There was no chance of getting me to play it. I mean, I had to give up Warhammer Fantasy in the first place because it was either that or WoW. I just didn't see how I could do both. Have I seen the unit model and video of Anduin Rin in Heroes of the Storm? Yes, I have, yeah. It shows that humans in World of Warcraft have too much muscle. Well, yeah, I mean, we all know that, like, World of Warcraft is the gaming equivalent of He-Man, isn't it? Remember the He-Man figures? Which, yeah, it's not realistic proportions. To be fair, the problem with World of Warcraft, and see, I don't like the art style, I have to say. I appreciate the quality of the work of the artist, but I don't like the style, the actual decision there. I understand the decision. It's because it had to be based on Warcraft 3 in their view. because they were worried that World of Warcraft might not work. They wanted that seamless transition. They wanted it to actually be as if you went into Warcraft 3. And of course, the art style for Warcraft 3 was suitable, because when you've got little tiny figures on the thing, you need to do them a little bit out of proportion, don't you? You can't have them too realistic, otherwise they look like nothing. So it made sense for Warcraft 3 in a way that it doesn't for World of Warcraft, but you get used to it, don't you? I don't really even think about it, except when someone talks about it, and then I think about it and think, no, I don't like it. Or when I'm playing like ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, I can log onto that and just look at my character or the background of something, not even do anything. Sometimes I just ride around just to look at the place because I like it. It's beautiful. But yeah. It made some good points about why it would be a good idea and how it would be the most authentic classic version. Sorry, have I missed something? Oh, no. No. The two flying mats that aren't much copy in your opinion. The ones that look like stone sculptures. Well, I mean, they're called alabaster, aren't they? That sort of suggests that that's pretty much what they're supposed to be. You are, statues commemorating the anniversary and you're riding them. I think that's actually the idea, isn't it? Also convenient that cartoony aesthetics stand the test of time far better. Well, I think the main advantage for it, in my view, has been that it has allowed them to be able to produce a game that you can run on a potato. That was always its great thing. I mean, I knew people who were playing on very low quality computers back in vanilla, and they were still able to raid, 40-man raid. But what really brought it home to me personally is, so I'd left the game in Wrath after the first tier because I thought this is a load of crap, and went off to play Warhammer Online and Lord of the Rings Online. Got myself into some guilds, was playing that regularly. That was all right. Then my graphics card exploded and I couldn't afford to get a new good one. So I had to just go to the shop and just get a bog standard graphics card. 30 quid, something like that. Installed it and all of a sudden could not play Warhammer Online at all. It would not, you'd log in and it'd be like wading through treacle. You couldn't move. So you couldn't do it. It's a PvP game. It wasn't even worth trying, which I couldn't do anyway, trying to get to an unpopulated area. Because you have to be among lots of other players because it's a PvP game. Lord of the Rings Online also didn't run well. Better than Warhammer Online. That was atrocious. So then I just decided to fire up World of Warcraft and play it a bit casually. Found I could play it very well. And then a friend of mine who was also coming back to it, playing casually with some friends, so I joined their guild. We even did a little bit of 10-man raiding, which I could do. So on this computer that would not even run Warhammer Online, and Lord of the Rings Online wasn't exactly great either, I was able to raid in World of Warcraft. I even did some Pug 25-mans as well. And that to me was, and I don't know that that's linked to the simpler artistic style, but it could be, for all I know, it could be. That was certainly a big plus of it. Age of Conan was even worse for that. You remember your GPU dying and couldn't run them at all. See, when I played Age of Conan, I did have a reasonable computer. And so it ran all right for me. But I didn't play it for very long because, I quite liked it on Tortage, the starting island. And then when I left and went out into the wider world, it just was all, I don't like it. It was rubbish. Couldn't get a handle on it. So I stopped. Although it's not the quickest MMO I've ever dropped. The quickest MMO I ever did, I was actually rooting through some stuff. I need to clear out some junk in my box room where there's boxes in there with stuff that's been in there for like 3 years. Ever since I moved here. 3.5 years nearly. So I found Dungeons and Dragons Online. That I played for approximately an hour and then just thought, no. I really didn't get into that at all. Wouldn't even consider going back to that. So that was pretty awful. But yeah, in terms of ones that I got into, and then, Age of Conan, I think for me it lasted about a week and then that's it. I tried going back to it last year just to try it out again. But it hasn't aged well. I didn't even get through the starting area. It was just... I mean, it's still got some charms to it. And I don't know whether it'll be any better once I get into the wider world, but I really didn't go through it. It was... So the only one I really miss, that I don't play anymore, is Warhammer Online, because it allowed me to see that you can actually make an MMO PvP focused game that I will enjoy playing. What do I think about basically every game nowadays being a live service released incomplete and broken? I think I would struggle to imagine the customer that approves of it. I think everyone's appalled at it. At the same time, we all enable that behaviour, don't we? Like, you know, Blizzard are doing it, aren't they now? Well, that's what BFA was. So, yeah, that is now the pattern. And they're only doing it. They're not doing it because they're arseholes. I mean, they are. They're doing it because we let them get away with it. And it's a way to make more money. So, yeah. The only way to stop it is to stop pre-ordering. That is the only way to stop it. I pre-ordered BFA, but I did that because I knew I was going to be playing it. And indeed I did for several months. So I would have had to buy it anyway. What sometimes fills me with dismay is when I see people saying that they bought the pre-order, but then instantly didn't like it when they started playing it. Now, my response to that would be, if you're not 100% sure that you're going to be playing this game, don't pre-order it. You know, why? Why would you? And I know they tantalise you by offering little trinkets, or whether it be in-game or an actual thing. Just don't. But that's the only way it's going to stop. Simple as that. You were just about able to escape a Paladin using your gnome rogue from PvP. I'm glad to see Paladins are still killing gnomes without my presence. The extremes of nickel and diamond will only be corrected if players stop buying it. Exactly. I mean, the thing is, because you can understand the massive temptation on their part, they are putting, particularly a big game, they're putting several years development into it and a lot of money. They're not going to be able to recoup any of those costs until the pre-order becomes available. So it's obvious, isn't it? Make the pre-order available as soon as possible. But once you announce the pre-order, you also have to give, at the very least, a date by which it will definitely be out. At which point you tie the developers' hands because they've now got a strict deadline to work to. Whereas, as we all know, the games, you know, in the past, like Blizzard used to make, it'll be released when it's ready is the best way of doing it for the customer. But it's not, you know, it's not the customer that's bugging them to have this thing brought out. It's the shareholders and the people representing them. You don't buy new games anymore, you play the same for 2 years. Well, that's fine. You see, you don't even need to, do you? Wait to see if you think you're going to like it or not. Certainly wait. I mean, if you're interested in a game, I would certainly suggest trying to get into like testing. And if you test it out and it seems all right, then fine enough. But I think you have to... I think if you're going to buy it, pre-order a game, you have to expect to want to play it for at least 2 months. 2 months. The cost of a game, or most games anyway, if you're going to get 2 months play out of it, that seems reasonable to me. That seems all right. But, you know, if you log on and straight away you do not like the game and you don't want to play it anymore, well, why did you pre-order it? I don't understand that. You haven't pre-ordered a game since TBC. Never intend to pre-order a game ever again due to false marketing trailers and features that never make it into the game. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't pre-order. I have pre-ordered the last few expansions, but that's because I knew I was going to be playing them. I would not pre-order the next one because I will not know that I'm going to be playing that. In fact, well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to, like, form my opinion now without even seeing anything on it. But I don't... And when I've pre-ordered new games, it's always been because I've been testing them. So I've always tested games that I've pre-ordered when I've pre-ordered them new. So I've not actually pre-ordered that many games because I don't do a lot of testing. Have I installed the 8.2, the PTR? Yes. You like the TBC servers? You think they're better than vanilla? No, I see. I was not a big fan of the TBC zones as such. I liked Nagrand, but I didn't like Zangarmarsh at all. I hated Blades Edge Mountains. Wasn't a big fan of Terakar Forest either. So it's quite a lot. You know, if I'm honest, there's quite a lot of TBC. You know, the questing, the leveling. Didn't get on with it. Didn't get on with it at all. But so yeah, no, I mean vanilla. Where's the vanilla zones? I loved them. I wish they'd have kept them the way they were. It is annoying to me that they did not. Oh, specs were of course infinitely better in TBC. Absolutely, you're not going to get any arguments from me there. The specs were completely ramshackle in vanilla. Really were. I don't think very much thought was given to those at all. None at all. TBC was the first time that they seriously thought about it. But you have to remember as well, I mean, they underestimated the undertaking of World of Warcraft anyway, because they basically had to pull every developer in the company onto working on WoW to get it ready for release. You know, developers on every other game, it's like, no, we're World of Warcraft now. Because it was such a huge undertaking. So certain things were bound to fall, you know, by the wayside. And at the time, to be fair, it wasn't seen as atrocious as far as I can tell. I mean, it was my first experience of an MMO. But I'd played single-player role-playing games, and it didn't seem awful to me. And I didn't really hear other people who were more experienced in MMOs saying that the classes were terrible. But yeah, they were properly shaped up in TBC, certainly. Karazhan was good, but the raids in TBC, in vanilla were good, you know. Best example of Blizzard not release an expansion before it's ready is Cataclysm. Did that take over a year after announcement to be released? I don't know. Wasn't playing then. Because although I sort of technically came back towards the end of Wrath just to play casually, then my whole computer failed basically. So I didn't play anything for like a year or more. In fact, it was nearly a couple of years, in fact. I came back at the end of Cataclysm. Reason Paladins were joking for those because they gutted them in beta because they were too good. Well, that's always the problem with Paladins. Removed all the fun Crusader strikes and put in crappy seals. Yeah, well, I didn't play it in beta, so I only know little bits about it. But yeah, I mean they were decent healers and like for buffing they were a very good support class. And damage was all right. It was just boring. That's all you could do. I mean, I keep saying I came top damage on Lothar. You know, and that's a Nax boss that a lot of guilds didn't kill. So you can't just say, oh, you just had a load of shit players then. Well, you can't do. You got to Lothar and killed it. And Lothar was a DPS check fight. Except when you went in with that cheesy strat of 5-man in it with a warrior, a shadow priest, and 3 warlocks, and it was a different matter. But generally speaking, when you did it proper with 40 people, it was a massive DPS check. So you could do the damage if you didn't have to do anything else like blessings and stuff like that. If you didn't have to heal, you didn't have to do blessings, you could do damage. It was just very boring. But I don't think it was super fun for a lot of classes. I mean, Fury Warriors had a couple of little wrinkles to them, didn't they? What else DPS wise actually had anything to it? I can't think of anything apart from Fury Warriors. I didn't play absolutely everything. I don't know about Shaman. Maybe they did. Who knows? You've never rated classes by how they come on meetings, if they play for fun or not. Well, yeah. I mean, that is a fair point about vanilla. Playing them was not really... Like, healing was fun, because healing is less about the class and more about the other players, individual people. I mean, that's the argument PvP players use, isn't it? For preferring PvP, because it's actual other people you're against and with. All raid sets for any hybrid class in vanilla were itemized just for healing. Aha! No, they weren't. No, they weren't. The Paladin sets. Oh my god. The Paladin, right. The first tier set. Oh my, to even think about it. I mean, the dungeon set for Paladins was a weird mix. That was actually slightly more DPS than anything. The tier 1 set had a really freakish mix of, like, basically, it had some combat bonuses on it, but no strength or something stupid like that. It was so bad for DPS because it had no strength on it, I think. But it had some combat bonuses on it. Judgment was way better. Judgment you could use for DPS and healing. It was good for both. And then Anchorage, of course, was a DPS set. That was a DPS set for Paladins. Enhancement was much more fun. So yeah, I don't know about it. I'm not sure I would regard totems as fun, though. Micromanaging totems, can do without that. Maybe you misremember you played a druid or you... Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for druids it may well have been. But I remember for paladins, the banana shoulders set, which I refused to take. The only pieces of that set I took were the ones with fire resistance on it. And I used them only for fire resistance. Only when I needed fire resistance, which is not often. Other than that, I point blank refused to wear the shoulders for anything. Point blank refused. I wore blue shoulders up until I got judgment shoulders. I absolutely refused to take them. I allowed them to be destroyed rather than given to me for free. They were that bad. They were not worth defiling my backpack with. And I used to rip the piss mercilessly out of any human, male paladin at least, that wore them. Dwarf paladins got away with it because they look, anything you put on them makes them look less ridiculous by definition. Human female paladins sort of got away with it somehow. I don't know how, but they got away with it. They're bringing in frost resistance, shadow resistance gear for 8.2. Yeah, I saw that. Oh, very odd. I mean, you know, someone was asking last week, do I think that if Classic WoW is successful, which, by the way, we'll never really know because they won't tell us. We'll try and infer things, but we won't really know. Would it cause Blizzard to rethink some aspects of their retail philosophy? Now, I don't believe it will. However, you know, you might find that there's the odd little thing that they try and do as a gimmick. And it could well be that shadow and frost resistance for what is ultimately a Naga-based raid, so that makes sense, is something that harks back to elder days of WoW. And maybe that is them trying to sort of say to people, oh, look, we're bringing stuff in from classic days. Maybe you want to play retail as well. But I don't see it as anything more than a gimmick if they're doing it at all. Because the other thing is, think about what resistance gear was for. Don't say resisting magic. No. From the developer's point of view, it was there to extend the shelf life of content. Because it was gear you had to collect. And sometimes certain people needed that resistance gear, mostly tanks, but you needed the resistance gear to have a hope in hell of surviving the encounter. So until you'd gathered that resistance gear, you were stuck. You know, you might practice the boss a bit, learn some mechanics, but you were going nowhere. And that appeals to them. Oh, a way for us to actually mean they have to take even longer gearing up. Fantastic. Maybe they could even do it like in Molten Core for the extra nostalgia. So you can only get the materials for this gear by mining in the raid, which resets every week. So it takes you weeks to gather it. I know they're not going to do that, but you know, you can see the appeal in that for them. Perhaps more a slight shift in general design philosophy rather than short-term single-player quests, more longevity and or community-focused content. Well, the community-focused content, I think, does have an appeal to the Blizzard developers. It's tricky though, isn't it? Because, I mean, the Gates of Anchorage was not... It was a good thing. No one wishes Blizzard didn't do it. But it wasn't exactly a stunning success just because of the nature of it. The idea of getting everyone on the server into one zone at the same time. That wasn't ideal. But the general idea of the community working towards something. The problem is, I just don't believe they can do it in any meaningful way. Because technically it exists in BFA, doesn't it? Because you gather the resources for the war fronts. But, you know, you don't really feel involved in it because they open up anyway. Whereas for Anchorage, when you were turning things in, you were doing it for that event. And you knew you were doing it for that event. So I don't know. It's just like half-arsed it. I think that's what they do, the developers these days, the senior ones. I think they half-arse things. They don't really go in full arse with it. You'd love to bring back the talent tree and needing... Why would you want ammo for guns and bows? That was... Even at the time, people thought that was a dreadful idea. I have never met anyone... You're now the first person, I think, who has ever seen it as a good thing. No one thought it was a good thing. It was a disaster. The number of times a hunter would run out of ammo in the middle of a dungeon or a raid. They just run out of ammo. Oh, got to come back. Do you know how long it took them to go and get more ammo? Absolutely insane. Who would want that again? All those things were a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. You know, the way you had to help warlocks get their soul shards, you know, during breaks or before a raid. And woe betide anyone who wanted a summon to the raid, because that would use up a soul shard. They had to put effort into getting that soul shard. You would get some dirty looks if they could see you. Oh, God. Anyway, the new essence system seems very cheap to me. Press X to nuke mobs every 30 seconds. No synergy. Azeroth system will end up being even more of a mess. I mean, I think it'll struggle to be more of a mess than it was at the start. But I just don't... I've all, you know, ever since the release when they finally stuck to it, I don't see... I've not seen any way to really rescue it in my eyes. It's not a good system. It's a system that doesn't really know what it's trying to be either. That's my worry about it. I don't know what Blizzard's intention with it is. And I never have known what it is. They'll never answer that. Hunters don't need bag space. They only need to roll in every weapon in the game. Yeah, but they do. They need the bag space for all the crap weapons that they can't usefully use, but they want anyway. And all the food to keep their pets happy. You know. God. I mean, being a hunter nowadays is like Life O'Reilly, isn't it? It's quite an easy class to manage, you know. Then it was a pain in the arse. Absolute pain in the arse to manage a hunter. You'll be playing a warlock because the soul shards look like a pain and you're into that. They are a pain. You're going to have to roll an undead warlock then, aren't you, with that gimp mask thing. If you want to be a masochist. You have to update beta settings in your account for a chance to get invited. Someone asking about that, because I have updated them, if that's to me. Now, the hunter food you did not like. No, neither did I. I mean, this is what led to the bear being fairly ubiquitous, didn't it? Because a bear will eat anything. You just get some cheese and shove it up its arse, it's happy. You know, whereas the other pets tended to be a bit picky. I mean, if you had a cat, you probably needed to fish to really keep it happy. You had to kill lots of beasts to keep the dogs happy. Bear? Bear will eat anything, just give it food, whatever. Don't matter. In Classic, the soul shards disappear from inventory if you log out. Well, they do that now, not soul shards. If it's a conjured item, disappears after 15 minutes if you log out. Yeah, that's still the case now. That's never changed. It's just that at the time, soul shards were conjured. And they were reagents in a lot of your like utility spells. There was no health stones as well. I mean, I remember when you were collecting your health stones in the raid, because there were, for the coming back to the lower Theb encounter, you needed 3. So you had a warlock with no talents and improved health stone, one with 1 and one with 2. That way, even though health stones were unique, you could actually get yourself 3 health stones. One a bit better than the others, and and we'd form orderly lines to collect our health stone. There was no summoning like a health stone well, whatever it's called. There was none of that. They had to make them one at a time. A health stone. Pass it as you join a queue. Pass it on then, go to the next queue. Oh my god. And you'd be there at the start of raids with mages conjuring water and food. Don't know what they conjured food for. Rogues never used it anyway, which just used to bloody well heal them. I don't know what the problem was. But they used to make them food for some reason. What happened to the pet if they were unhappy? They'd piss off. If they became very dissatisfied with you, they used to bite you and bugger off. They'd become hostile or just bugger off. You'd lose them. And they would get pissed off quite a lot. If they died, they used to get a bit annoyed. If you kept killing them, they used to get very annoyed. So you have to keep feeding them. But they also got a little bit, they would get, like, I suppose it was mimicking hunger. So if you went around for them for a while and you hadn't fed them, they'd get dissatisfied as well. They were only in it for the perks of being fed. They were not a loyal companion to you. They were there for food. You supplied them with food and they would supply you with service. Wasn't hard to walk to the innkeeper and buy 60 food for raid night. You didn't need any root food for the raid night. Because they used to get healed. We needed water because you can't heal mana back. So casters needed water. But no one needed food. I don't know why they made it for them. Really, you're just wasting time. For every idiot thing that was in Classic, you're still hyped about it very much. I mean, I don't know that I would describe them as idiot things. They were just the way these games seemed to work at the time. I mean, if you look... I mean, if someone were to compile a list, someone experienced in MMOs, were to compile a list of the most hardcore MMOs, they would all be old ones, wouldn't they? Because they were. And I don't know why that was. And I don't know why people have moved away from that and gone to much more casual, friendly MMOs, but that's just the way it's gone. So, yeah, World of Warcraft, to be fair, was just mimicking certain standards, I guess. It's just that, they were annoying. Some of them were annoying even at the time. Some of them weren't. Some of them I wasn't at all annoyed with, and I've only become annoyed with them after improvements were made to the game, and I thought, this is loads better. Like AoE loops. It's like one of the greatest things introduced to the game. But I didn't think it was... I obviously thought it was a bind having to loot lots of things if you went in and killed lots of things at once. But I didn't think... what this game really needs is the ability to loot one thing and loot everything at once. I mean, this is where Lord of the Rings Online, even better. Not only does Lord of the Rings Online now have AoE loot, you don't even have to loot. If you kill a mob, it loots automatically. You can just kill something and you automatically get its loot. That is brilliant. You can even harvest mounted. I wish they'd have done that in World of Warcraft before I stopped. That would have been brilliant. No need to bend down and pit and loot things. And you can mine things as you're riding past something just without getting off your mount and having to get back on it again. Absolutely brilliant. Swinging a mining pick off a horseback. Nothing like it. A lot of people give shit Classic, and I still think these old MMOs were the best ones, only because of the community focus. Can't play any MMO for a long time like I could play WoW. I mean, the community side of things, see, that's where I tend to be of the school of thought that I don't think modern systems of MMOs reduced community so much as I think the community's basically, I don't know whether it was diluted because of lots more MMOs coming onto the market or whatever. I think the community went and then people became much more interested in them for the solo experience, and I think the game's designers fed that. I don't think it was the other way around. And the reason I think that is because lots and lots of games all seem to do it at the same time. So I think they were responding. So yeah, I don't think there was anything about WoW Classic. Obviously, things like the fact that you couldn't realm transfer locks people into a realm. The fact that you couldn't have auto queues for dungeons means people have to talk to each other. The fact, you know, there's lots of things you can point at and say that it encourages community. But I don't think there's anything in WoW that forced community as such that isn't there now. I think it's just, you know, I think these just things just stopped naturally in the gaming community. And I think, you know, the WoW Classic stuff will have a reasonable community, but I don't think it's to do with the game. I think that's just because the people attracted to it will be people like yourself who are attracted to that sense of community. So it will naturally draw those people in. Was there any class that didn't need to worry about preparing a lot before raids? Yeah, warriors. They had nothing, did they? Nothing at all. I'm trying to think. Rogues didn't have a lot, but there was your tea that you made, isn't there, for energy replenishment? So if you I mean, lazy rogues didn't really have anything to worry about. You needed reagents for your poisons, but you just bought those off a vendor. Warriors needed nothing. To be fair, early days, paladins needed nothing either. We got a reagent later on, but to begin with, we didn't. You know, so... Should they port WoW Classic to mobile? Well, I will never play a game on the mobile. In my life, I will never play. As long as my arse looks south. It doesn't matter if no PC games ever were developed again. I would just stick to tabletop or old games. Warriors did all their prep while leveling. If they leveled as protection, then yes, they did. I cannot understand for the life of me why any warrior ever leveled as protection. Why would you do that? Cost nothing to respec when you got level cap. And you didn't need protection spec to tank in dungeons. I didn't understand that. Still need food and drink? No, that's what mages were for. Didn't need food and drink. Rogues, yeah, they bought their poisons, but the tea was a buff that they used for energy replenishment. So that was some preparation for rogues. Warriors had nothing. Paladins didn't really have anything. I mean, all right, if you want to carry on water, do, but you've got a mage to do that. You would have water for dungeons, but not for raids. What's the point? The content encouraged people to work together, and the server-based approach made sure you got to know people. I don't think it made sure you got to know people. You know, it was easy to get to know people, but there was still effort required. You still had to have the inclination to do that. How can anyone enjoy playing a game or watching a film on that pathetic little crappy screen? Oh, the mobile. I thought you were talking about WoW, because it was a pathetic little grubby screen when I was playing WoW. A 14-inch cathode ray tube monitor I had, including TBC even as well. I can't remember when I got rid of it. It was a very long time. I think I even still had it when I came back to the game in Cataclysm. The only way I'd have to watch old videos. Miss of Pandaria. I have an inkling I got a widescreen monitor for that. I may have had one for Cataclysm. I don't think I did. I think I got one for Mop. You levelled as holy, as a paladin. I didn't even heal as holy in raiding. I didn't switch to holy spec until like the end of... I refused to do it until I had at least 5 pieces of judgment gear. I didn't see the point. No, I mean, to begin with, you needed some rets to heal anyway, because Blessing of Kings was at the bottom of the ret tree until 1.9. Yeah, 1.9. That was the patch that brought all the good stuff. Why? I don't understand. Like, you could heal and tank dungeons fine. As long as your class had that role, it could do that job. You really didn't need the spec. People must have been gluttons. I suppose it's a new game and people look at it and think, I want to be a healer. Oh, that's a healing spec. I'll do that. But Gordon Bennett must have been a nightmare. Mage without rank 7 water is another one. Not yeah, well, fortunately, when I started raiding properly, it was with a guild that was organised. So the mages had the rank 7 water. Or rank whatever. I'll take your word for it, it was rank 7. The one you had to do the quest in Diamol for. Because there was no excuse. In a raiding guild, there's no excuse for not having that. Because at the end of the day, if you go, like a mage, a casual mage might go, well, I can't get a group to go and do that dungeon. Well, if you're in a raid guild, you've got lots of people to go to that dungeon with you. You know, even a new recruit that didn't have it would have it the next day. There was no reason not to. You know, imagine, because, you know, that was a thing in vanilla that you used to find in dungeons, wasn't it? Paladins who would say, you know, there would be a wipe, they would survive, or they'd be the first back and they'd say, can you res me? And the Paladin would go, I've res. Because it was a level 10 quest. You had to do a quest to get that spell. They would at least claim they didn't have it. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. I mean, can you imagine that in a raid guild? Sorry, don't have res. All you need in Holy is Divine Favour anyway. Well, I mean, you know, that was useful. I mean, the 5% extra crit much lower down was good once you had a decent amount of crit. Like, I didn't see the point in it before that. As soon as I had about 20% crit, all of a sudden, yeah. Because then you're getting so much mana back from, what is it, Illumination, whatever the hell, that it's worth it then. So that's what I said. I needed a certain level of gear before I felt... And this was, of course, after 1.9, when all of a sudden Blessing of Kings was obtainable from quite high up in the protection tree. At that point, I agreed to get a Holy Spec. You didn't need it before. I mean, most of the time, before 1.9, you did healing. It was decent. Because you've got to bear in mind as well, you put Blessing of Light on everyone, and people got more healing from your heal. Well, your Flash of Light and Holy Light, but that's what you healed with. Holy Shot was like rubbish. So you actually could do a load of healing. But most of your time was spent blessing. I mean, blessing 40 people every 5 minutes doesn't give you that much time for healing. Really, does it? So you didn't really need the healing bonuses from the Holy Spec. What good were they? Once 1.9 came along, and once I had enough crits, yeah, all of a sudden, Holy Spec looks better. Did Warlocks need to feed their pets or anything? No, they didn't. I think they needed a soul shard to summon them, though. If they died, or they wanted to just summon a different one. It's true that even Warriors only smacked a couple of buttons, still better than Paladins. Yeah, Paladins was not that difficult to do. People still managed to mess it up, mind you. I don't know how. Because, like I say, when I was top DPS on Lower Theb, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th positions were not occupied by the other Paladins. There's a great aspect of the game, questing for spells. Like Hunters, you had to tame X number of pets and types before you got to tame Beast spell. Well, I think it was like 3, wasn't it? I think that was part of your starter quest, yeah. And a druid that had to almost drown before they could get the form that allows them to never drown. Well done. You've swum to the deepest depths you'll ever need to go. Here's something that would allow you to have done it much easier. I need to try mobile gaming because these... No, I don't. I don't. These have better specs than computers had when WoW Classic came out. I don't care. This has better specs than all the processing power NASA had when it sent people to the moon. And I would rather send this phone to the moon than play a game on it. RE Divine Favour. If you take only Divine Favour, you can still make respectable retry all the way to 5 out of 5 Vengeance. Well, once 1.9 came out, you didn't even need to get 41 points in ret, did you? Because at the bottom, they put in Repentance. Like crap. I mean, yeah, all right, crowd control. Good, nice, whatever. No. Playing mobile games like offering a toddler's play card to an adult enthusiast. Yeah. I mean, literally, the only purpose I can see in mobile gaming is it's something to do whilst travelling. Not while you're in charge of the vehicle, of course. But, you know, on a train, in the back of a car, you know, waiting at a train station, in an airport, that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay? I can see that. I cannot see a circumstance under which people would want to play on a mobile. I mean, each to their own. If people want to, that's fine. Cannot understand why people would choose to play on a mobile if they're in a place that can accommodate a computer. I mean, the only reason I even understand people's fondness for like games consoles is because they're a lot cheaper than a gaming computer and they don't take up as much space. I understand that. And you can play it just laid down on your sofa. That's fine. Was it not with Mop when Warlocks got their green fire with the quest? Yes, they did. And then all the other players who didn't got on the forums, where's our green fire? Yes, yeah, that's true. It was in Mop. Which, of course, is what prompted the class quests in Legion. Because think about it, what came after Mop? WoD and Legion being developed in parallel. So that prompted them to do class quests for everyone. But then the problem was, from Blizzard's point of view, they said that they were spending too much development time on content that was only being seen by a small percentage of the player base. So they went off the idea. Soon there will only be mobile games and consoles. What will I do then? Play Warhammer. I'm already playing Warhammer. I'll play Warhammer. Doesn't matter anyway. There will always be PC games. There may not always be new PC games, but people will always adapt old games for the PC. Again, like I'm playing Baldur's Gate now. I'm not playing my original Baldur's Gate, for which I still have the discs. Because it probably... Although I think Windows... I haven't actually tried it on Windows 10. Windows 10, I think, can run more things than previous versions of old stuff. But I'm playing the Enhanced Edition, which does have its bugs, but it also has its charms as well. It's got extra little things in it, which are nice. Because that's what people will do. If it's a good game, people will want to play it a long time after it was current, and they'll pay for it. So there will always be PC games. They may just not always be brand new ones. Why is there no Necromunda game? What PC game? I don't know. I don't care. I don't like 40k stuff. It's not 40k that I have an issue with. It's just sci-fi games. For some reason, I don't enjoy sci-fi games. But anyway, such a myopic way for them to account for content's usefulness. Having something out of reach to aspire to should be considered valuable. Guess not with the audience they've cultivated now. But that's the thing. I don't think they have cultivated that audience. Again, it's an opinion. I think it's very difficult to say. Because, you know, I don't like to use the phrase which came first, the chicken or the egg, because it was the egg. But in this particular case, this sort of applies. I think they have delivered what was required of them by the people playing the games rather than the other way around. But I agree that having things that are tantalizingly out of reach is very, you know, there's a balance to be made. You want people to sort of feel they can get it, but not everyone get it. And not by luck either, but by, you know, effort. Not like time spent. I'm not into like grindy games, but, you know, in terms of like wit and skill and dedication and what have you. You know, yeah. And I mean, it's not that it's completely absent from the game now. You get unique mounts for getting like well, you don't get the mounts for getting cutting edge, but you get them from the mythic bosses that give you the cutting edge. Some people will not get the mounts. Depends how late on you kill it, I suppose. But that sort of thing. So you do get some things, just, you know. The problem is that that's too high for a lot of people to aim for. There aren't a lot of things that are difficult to obtain. I suppose the Mage Tower was one example, wasn't it? Because, I mean, I don't understand it, but there were people still struggling even late on in Legion with the Mage Tower. When you could ignore most of the mechanics. Like, even I did the tanking one without... I had the guide there. I was going to watch the video and I just thought I'll just give it a couple of goes and I beat it. I had no idea what to do. You know, but I did it late on where it was easy. I could have done the holy one as well, I should think. But I didn't like the holy weapon, so I didn't care. But anyway, board game has changed quite a bit. Look at Gloomhaven. You can play that basically for months with a group. I can play Dungeons and Dragons for years with a group, and that came out in the 70s. I could play Warhammer Quest for months on one campaign with a group. Probably not years, but months. And, you know, that came out in the 90s. So, you'd like to see me play the Cruel Necessity board game. Well, the thing is, like, the local gaming club, I have been persuaded to play a couple of board games, just as one-off. The problem with showing... when we were playing the Age of Sigmar League yesterday, someone had the Game of Thrones tabletop game. It's not a board game, I grant you, but a tabletop game. But there are people there who play board games as well. But my issue is, it's not that I'm hostile to trying new games. My fear is that if I arrange to play a particular game on a night, and maybe I could have had a game of Warhammer, which I would prefer. So there are few enough people who play Warhammer in my local area that it's not like I can say, all right, I'll play this game on Monday, then I'll arrange a game of Warhammer on Friday, because there might have been someone who wanted to play it on Monday and not on Friday. And then I've missed out. I thought it was a velociraptor that came before the chicken. Well, no. The chicken egg had to come before the chicken. What laid the chicken egg didn't have to be a chicken. But what came out of the chicken egg had to be a chicken, otherwise it's not a chicken egg. Chickens are hatched from eggs, so the egg had to come first. Simple. It's one of the... Whenever I get, and I'll be doing this in September, every year, and I've done this for about 15 years now, whenever I get a new science class, I always ask them 3 questions. I ask them which came first, the chicken or the egg, and tell them I expect an answer. It's not a philosophical question. Secondly, why are leaves green? And I expect the proper answer, not because it contains chlorophyll. And the third question I ask, which is the most demonic, and the one that even very bright students can't usually answer, although one year someone did, which is, what is science? To point out the fact that there's a lot of scientific terms that these students have used over the years that they've been in school, and they use them quite accurately, but they often don't actually know what they mean. The words that people use on it in everyday language, and a lot of people do not know what they mean. What are the 4 forces? No, I don't ask them that. That's even for A-level students, that'd be a bit unfair before they've been taught them. That would just be a knowledge thing rather than a proper understanding, whereas I feel that my questions tackle fundamental understanding. But anyway, it's a solitaire game simulating the military, political and religious struggles of the English civil wars. Oh, okay. One-player. Oh, I'm not so keen on the one-player games. The benefit... See, for me, like... Who was it? Sorry, was it Elsie? I can't remember. Talking about the community aspect of World of Warcraft in classic days. For me, tabletop gaming is that. Because there's a physical person. I know there's physical people there. You're all physical people. But I only have your words for it. Whereas when you play the tabletop game, they're there. You're properly interacting with them in a way that even when you're very friendly with people on TeamSpeak or something, you don't quite on a game. So for me, you know, the community aspect is in physical games more than electronic games. Although I'm not downplaying the fact that community does exist on electronic games as well. But yeah, it was slightly less chicken than laid the slightly more chicken. Yes, yeah. It was something else that was almost a chicken, not quite. You installed Assassin's Creed Origins. It's set in ancient Egypt. It'd be fun maybe having an MMO in that setting. Or in ancient Egypt or Assassin's Creed. Specifically, like each expansion be a different time zone or something. World of Assassin's Creed. Just like the different versions of the game are. But each expansion is consciously a working through time. Could do World of Blackadder, do the same thing. Hang on, what should I do? I should read the books before the TV series. What TV series? Hold on, what am I missing now? Who said something about a TV series? Oh, Game of Thrones. No, I've got no intention of reading the books. It took me years for people to persuade me to watch the bloody series. I mean, okay, maybe one day I will get around to reading the books. But, you know, I've not. Did I ever play any multiplayer PC at a LAN party? Yes. Oh, yeah. Not for a very long time. Games I've typically played in LANs have been Warcraft, Civilization. I think it was Civilization 3 days. Star Wars game, but I can't remember which one. There was like a free-for-all MOBA type situation with a Star Wars game that I used to play. So yeah, things like that. RTS type games, or MOBAs as we would call them now. I've played. Doom, of course. Used to play Doom. I was the one in Doom because I never used to. I liked using the Doom editor to create levels for my friends, but I was never really a keen player of it. I mean, I played it. So I was always the one who didn't care about dying. So I'd be quite happy to run forwards and be the distraction. The number of times I would just, without saying to people, oh, I'm going to be the distraction, and just run forwards and get a shotgun blast in the back of my head from someone. That was on cooperative, of course. Then you'd play the deathmatch in LANs as well, but I was even less interested in that. So, yeah. There is only the Electro Weak Strong Gravity. No. There are 4 now. There used to be 3. But anyway. I mean, I do sometimes with because my students are not the A-level students. I haven't taught A-level for a few years. So we don't do... But at various points, I do all of the 4 fundamental forces. Because we have to explain the strong nuclear force with reference to nuclear stability, for example. Wonder what class Baldur it would be. He could be the bard, couldn't he? He's there to give others hope. Yes. Yeah, I think I grew up in quite a good time for British comedy, really. There's quite a lot of stuff on that I'd still appreciate these days, which is not always the case with stuff that I watched as a kid. Because that's the thing. I mean, I pretty much watch no television now. I watch the occasional live sporting event, something like that. Very rare I actually just watch something on television. Whereas when I was a kid, I used to watch loads. I don't actually know how I got anything done because I had a lot of hobbies as well. A lot of hobbies that meant moving out of the house. Not permanently, of course. But for extended periods of time. So... The moron class, ability to turn gold into poo. Well, that was surely... what's his face? Darling, wasn't it? I know, it was called Darling in Blackadder Goes Forth. What was he called in... what was he called Darling as well in Blackadder the Second? The Ian McInnery character. He was the one who tried to turn base metals into gold, didn't he? And turned it into green. Thicker than Baldur even. The World War One series would not be possible today, would it not? Why do you think not? It's used today. It's referred to. Oh, Lord Percy, that was it, yeah. Do you know what? I need to watch my Blackadder DVDs again. Maybe that's what I need to be watching when I'm doing some painting this weekend. Going by Blizzard expansion model, race class. What's going to be the new class? Something ranged. And when I say ranged, I mean ranged. No melee options at all. Only ranged. Necromancer. I don't care what warlocks say to that, because I know they're going to go loopy if it's even suggested, because they've already lost abilities to Death Knights and Demon Hunters. But at the end of the day, you can't exactly say warlocks are neglected by Blizzard. So Sodom. Not a tinker. A tinker, by definition, would be a support class. Blizzard hates support classes. They got rid of the best support class they ever had in the Paladin. Paladins are brilliant support classes in every game where you have Paladins. Blizzard knackered them. So, no. Male wearing Necromancer. That would work, yeah. Do that. That can use a bow. Even better. Male wearing Necromancer that can use a bow. Hang on. Blackadder goes forth generally dismissed. No. No one's suggesting it's accurate. It's not. It's parody. What they're parodying is the fact that the generals were considered to be incompetent. I mean, it still took them a bloody long time to learn, though. A bard wouldn't really be ranged enough. It might have a ranged option, and that would be a support class as well. Blizzard are not going to bring out a support class. They have no need to. Why would you remove support abilities from what used to be support classes and then create a new support class? It would literally be like me throwing out my television, going, I don't watch telly anyway, I'm throwing it out. Then the next day, buying a television. So, no. It had better not be any new classes anyway, because the thing is, even if they bring out a ranged one that's pure ranged, there's still too many classes already. 12 classes is already too many. They have to stop. I know there's been a certain pattern, but they have to stop it. I mean, we'll find out in November anyway, won't we? But they can't keep doing it. Tossing something out and replacing it with the next day, it sounds exactly like Blizzard. No, not even they do that, do they? No. Best thing about Necromancer is it's another class that could potentially steal from Warlocks. Well, that is ultimately what every Warlock would feel. I mean, they will feel that they're going to lose even more stuff. There's not going to be any Mechagnomes or Vulpera as playable races. Already they're obsolete in the initial zones with silly surge in power in 8.2. Yeah, well, that's what they do. I mean, people have already pointed this out. This isn't new with BFA. That it has always been the case that every new expansion voided the previous ones. Now, every new patch voids the previous patch within the same expansion almost. I mean, people were making that point already, weren't they? Yeah, I mean, that is how it's working now. Necromancer to Death Knight, what Priest is to Paladin. Maybe. But whatever. I mean, just either do what I suggested and give a range spec to everyone, or make, if there is got to be a new class, and 13 will not be a lucky number for them, it has to be, it absolutely has to be ranged only. It's got to be. I wouldn't even suggest it should have a healing spec. Apart from anything else, people will just say they're copying ESO if they do that. because, you know, they have all specs. You can have a tanking necromancer even in ESO. You don't want Mechanomes as a race. You think Blizzard might give in to the masses to try and keep them happy. They've shown no sign of wanting to keep their customers happy so far, have they? I don't think they would. There are many ways in which they could have kept their customers happy without being as extreme as forcing gnomes upon the Horde as well as the Alliance. Because you're not suggesting, I hope, that Alliance get a double dose of gnomage. Have I seen the Mechanome dance? No. I tend not to click on things that involve gnomes knowingly. I have to be tricked into it. If you heard it right, you can now get the best raid gear with farming the new zone for the currency, which means no longer have to raid to get top-notch gear. I'm not sure that that will be correct. It might be that what they mean, I mean, I am now too far removed to really know, but it might be, maybe, that so 8.2 comes out, including Mechagong, right? And it could be that you can get currency that will allow you to get gear that is the equivalent of the current raid gear. But then 8.2.5 will release the new raid with higher item level gear. I don't believe that it will equal that gear. It may. This is it. It'll be exactly like in Legion, and in WoD, come to think of it, but in Legion, you know, on the Broken Shore, you had that vendor that sold gear. It'll be like that. Be random gear. That'll be what it is. Which will be catch-up gear, so it'll be higher item level. But it won't be anything like the gear you're going to get from the Eternal Palace, whatever it's called. Can't remember now what the name of the bloody raid is. The new gear you can upgrade to Heroic 8.2 rate gear. Really? That sounds a little high. Is not the fact that Mechanomes have their own dance evidence that Mechanomes are going to be a playable race? No. No. At least WoW keeps getting new things unlike other bigger franchises. They do. This is true. I mean, you know, World of Warcraft does keep giving players new content. It makes enough money too. I think if you look at, like, which big games are you thinking of that don't, though? That being said. Because Elder Scrolls Online does. Final Fantasy does. I can't really think of too many big titles that don't. But I'm not au fait enough with them. So which ones are you thinking don't? Because to my mind, the ones that tend not to as much tend to be the ones that are just struggling to get by as it is. They're not actually making that much. Horde gets Ogres and Alliance get Mechanomes. Why would Alliance get Mechanomes? If Mechanomes are going to be there at all, surely it's Horde that have to suffer them now. Apart from anything else, I said this last week, that might be an interesting way to get more people to switch from Horde to Alliance. Give them gnomes. Give them more annoying gnomes. Within 2 weeks, you can upgrade a piece up to the 8.2 heroic gear. So after 3 months of the patch, you could have all the heroic gear. Oh, okay, that's not so bad then. Because if it's going to take you longer to get a full set heroic gear than doing heroic raids. No, I'm all right with that. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Are you thinking of the rest of Blizzard's games? Okay, I don't. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I say I don't know, but obviously I do know that nothing new has come out for Diablo or StarCraft for a very long time. Bloody long time. Yeah. I don't really know what that's about. It's not really a good thing that of all the new things, by far the best thing for me are the new walking models. Oh, well. But no, it's not. I mean, this is what I was saying at the start of the stream, which not all of you have been here for. So what I'm going to do is from next week, like I say, I'm going to stream, but I'm going to stream a game. So we'll just talk while I'm playing a game. Because I don't think, this format is got the legs really, because I'm not playing it. And I'm now not likely to play it until summer, and I may not even play it then. I may or may not. The longer I'm away from it, the less. It's like a dependency that I've shaken, isn't it? Gnomes with cuter eyes and squeakier voices. Oh dear God, no. No. But anyway, I don't know. They're not doing them. They're not doing them as a race. Blizzard have already explained various aspects to them. The new content's just die. It's the same old crap over and over. Ultimately, yes, it is. But I mean, in my particular case, I don't want to say anything too positive because that sort of content wouldn't have engaged me at any point in the game's history. Like the thing that has always, like, okay, I wasn't raiding the day I started World of Warcraft, but that's because I was leveling through it. As soon as I started finished leveling, I knew I wanted to raid. I don't actually remember how I found out about raiding, because I didn't like join community sites or anything. But anyway, whatever. I knew I wanted. So, you know, the game without raiding, at no point, doesn't matter even if you go back to vanilla, would ever have held my attention long enough. I'd have never given up playing Warhammer Fantasy for World of Warcraft without me being a serious raider. That would never have happened. The thing that made me quit the game altogether in Wrath was because the raiding was pants. And for those who don't know, that was before Ulduar came out. I thought I was going to start raiding against one summoner on it. No, I've always said no. How would that even be feasible? One, I no longer mind not raiding. Two, you can't just go to a guild and say, I'd like to raid with you, but I'm only going to do it for 6 weeks. That's it's not enough to clear anything. Three, I am not getting my gear up to the point where I'd be competitive. Plus, I'd have to practice my bloody class again, wouldn't I? But also, I'm not getting my neck. I'm not doing a bloody artifact. I refuse. Absolutely refuse. On no level would I even consider it now. Do I think they'll completely rework PvP so it's finally good again? Well, I don't ever think it was good in the past. So, do I think they'll rework it so that it was like it used to be? Maybe. I don't know. Do I think they'll rework it so that I would think it's good? No. I've never thought PvP was good in WoW. At any point. I loathe PvP in World of Warcraft. I like battles. There are no battles to be had in World of Warcraft. There are scraps. You can have scraps between a couple of people or between 80 people. But they're ultimately just brawls. And there's nothing more sophisticated than that in it. It's a little curious that those cutified avatars of Sylvanas and Anduin actually make them resemble gnomes. I can't help. I think it's that gnomes resemble chibis rather than chibis resembling gnomes. It's not the cuteness of gnomes that I mind. And in fact, when you talk about cuteness, it's only female gnomes that are cute, bear in mind. The male gnomes are gruesome. They are the most repugnant creatures. Now, what I mind about gnomes is less their looks and more their behaviour. They behave themselves pretty well. They don't do anything. They don't squeak. They don't jump up and down like they've done something clever. They just stand there. AV was good. AV was good because there was not much PvP in it. It was essentially something you could do if you wanted PvP rewards but were a PvE player. What about gnomes in D&D? They're also annoying. But the good thing about gnomes in D&D is that even the game's developers know that. There's no trying to pretend that there's any dignity about them. Gnomes in D&D, it's expected that you bully them. They are downtrodden and that is described as a good thing. Perhaps they should rename the races grotesque. Well, they're not. The females are not grotesque. The males are. This is what I proposed in my little... I did a little treatise on the gnomes in World of Warcraft. And one of the points I was trying to make is how they have... Even evolution is abandoning the race. Because they have genetically developed into a situation where the females are very attractive, but the males are gruesome. Therefore, you avoid having gnomes mate. And if you don't have as many gnomes mating, that means you don't have as many in the next generation. Azeroth's a dangerous place. In every generation, quite a lot of gnomes will be killed, mostly by me. And eventually they're going to die out just on that basis. I mean, even in Before the Storm, there was a romance in featuring a female gnome. Wasn't with a male gnome, was it? It was the goblin. And they're not exactly like the oil paintings. We can't show that. But anyway. It's a little racist. They're not really a race though, are they? I keep trying to explain this. It's not racism because they're not a race. They're like bacteria. And it's nothing personal. Every time I go to the toilet, I wash my hands. I am killing bacteria. I don't have anything in for it with the bacteria. I don't hate them. It's just something I need to do to be healthy. And it's the same thing with gnomes. It's extermination. It's not really like cruelty because they have no feelings. And they're not a race. They're, they're a pathogen. Is what they are. ERP time, what with gnomes? Ugh. I remember when I compared them to bacteria. Yeah, I compare them to bacteria. That's exactly what they are. Natural selection works wonders. It knows how to extinguish a race that doesn't deserve to exist. However, there'll be many half gnomes. There may be. I'm hoping that those offspring will be sterile, though, as often happens with interbreeding, because if you end up, like, if one of the parents has an odd number of pairs of chromosomes and the other has an even number, then the offspring have an odd number of chromosomes, which renders them infertile. So then they die out. So that's fine. No idea what they're even thinking when adding gnomes. I know what they were thinking. They were thinking, right, we're going to have trolls, tauren and orcs together because that makes sense. We're going to have humans, dwarfs and night elves together because that makes sense. Then someone said, undead are really popular. We've got to have Forsaken. And they might have even, I don't know, maybe they're even thinking of a third faction with Forsaken. And they're thinking, what can we put in with Forsaken? Sod it, let them just join the Horde. And then someone probably went, but there's only 3 races in the Alliance. And then some idiot probably went, let's just give them gnomes. That's probably how it went down. There were gnomes in Warcraft 3, not really. Well, they were in that sense, yeah, with the copters and trains, as you say. But they weren't really... They existed, shall we say. They existed, which is bad enough. You didn't really have gnome people. Well, they're not people anyway, but, even pretending to be. So they existed in the game, but not in the same sense that the other ones did. Like, there was no gnome hero, for example. High elves, no, we got dwarfier dwarfs. Did we? Well, I suppose we did. What, with the dark iron, you mean? Yeah, they're really not feeling it for high elves, are they? They gave us void elves instead and said that's close enough. Oh, to the gnomes. Well, they were probably thinking, what's the point of giving them 2 elf races? No, I don't think they would have done high elves. That wouldn't have made sense. It would be just 2 elf races. I mean, like now we might appreciate one would just have different colour hair and eyes, but back then it would just be like, this is just the same thing, isn't it? No, I think it had to be 4 different races. I'd have taken goblins. I'd have been absolutely fine with goblins. It's nothing to do with their heights that I have an issue. There's this link that people draw. The height of a gnome is irrelevant, immaterial. I'm quite happy playing halflings in Lord of the Rings Online. You know, I'm quite happy playing goblins even in World of Warcraft, and I was very happy in Warhammer Online playing a goblin. No problem with short races. It's not the height. Even though the height, in fact, the height has been a benefit because the number of the amount of enjoyment I used to derive in Burning Crusade in the Black Morass as we were running from portal to portal and the gnomes had to swim. That was amazing. They never drowned though. Saberon would be nice. Give them to Horde and give Alliance something good. Alliance are getting, you know, light forsaken, I'm telling you. You always thought the gnomes were the offshoot of the dwarfs, as like the choppers you got from dwarfs in Warcraft 2. But no, in fact, I gather they were considering goblins at one time for the 4th race for Alliance. Unfortunately, they moved away from that idea. I'd like to know who said no to it, because I owe them a punch in the face. But, You'd like to see ogres in the game. We talked about this last week. I mean, if you can have male Draenei, then you can, and male Tauren, you could have ogres. But what would the female ogres look like? Are there female ogres in the game? Do you remember in Warcraft 1 when the female orc was basically an orc with lipstick on? Just had all the masculine features. It just had lipstick on. I can't imagine a feminine version of an ogre. They don't exist, do they? They also considered 3 factions and having playable Naga and demons. Well, I certainly would have considered 3 factions. I wish they'd have done 3 factions. That would have solved an awful lot of the PvP problems early on. What do I think of Mogwai from Gremlins? Bit of a fluffy gnome, isn't he? No, they only became gnomes when they ate after midnight. The fluffy ones were not like gnomes. They were alright. Oh, she's lipstick. Indeed, in Warcraft 1, honestly. Let me find it. What was the name of Griselda or something stupid? One of these solo missions where you didn't build a farm or anything. You just went into a dungeon, basically. And you had to capture an orc chieftain's daughter that had run away. Find a picture of it. And it was just... I need to find an... Oh, probably not be able to find it. Finding screenshots of the mission, but not the orc itself. LOTRO's levelling is broken, neglected as well. Oh, it's worse than WoW's. No, I would say LOTRO is worse than WoW's. I'm not going to show that. Yeah, it is more. So let's put short. The levelling is not. It's not great. It hasn't changed since those days. That is a big problem. No, I'm struggling here. I'm not going to play it through just to find it either. But anyway, maybe they'll add more furries. I mean, we have pandas and Worgen. Vulpera, no Vulpera. They're not going to become a playable race. Doesn't make any sense to do so on any level. First of all, when Blizzard do introduce a new playable race, they introduce it at the start of the expansion for which that race is being introduced or reintroduced, as was the case with Worgen and goblins, I suppose, as new factions of them. So no, unless the next expansion is going to take place in a zone that hitherto, unbeknownst to us, was, you know, a place where Vulpera frequent, then that is never ever going to happen. So I'll find out here. It is Griselda because I've seen the screenshot that gives the mission. She's... Oh! Oh, that's a really bad picture. God, it looks like Medusa there. They're very low resolution images, that's the problem. Gordon Bennett. Alright, I don't think I'm going to succeed in this. Am I going to compete for Classic World First in Raiding? No, there's no such thing. And I wouldn't do that anyway. Like, there's no such thing as World First. The World First was 15 years ago. Or thereabouts. Not quite, 14 and a bit. Dwarf females are the cute ones. Dwarf females are alright. What is the thing with MMOs toning difficulty down? In many cases you have to team up and now make it so easy you can basically AFK while fighting. I really don't know. It is something that Blizzard have regretted though. In BFA they deliberately massively toned down the skill caps for a lot of, well, all the DPS. They have regretted that. I gather that that is going to be reverted, or at least changed back upwards for the next expansion. But I couldn't tell you what the thinking behind it is. You saw someone making convincing playable ogres. You think it was a fan-made April Fool's or an art project? I mean, you could do it. It's not that you couldn't. It's just... Do you think we'll get a Warcraft rep in Smash Brothers Ultimate? What? I don't even know what that is. If they fix the levelling, would I come back to WoW a lot more? No. I had a lot of characters at level cap anyway. The levelling, although, like, whenever I complain about the levelling, it's mostly empathy towards people who would have to level as new players of the game. But I don't really see me, you know, in WoW again, really. Apart from, as I say, pottering around. Like, I've just noticed my accounts come up for resubscription this month. And I was umming and ahhing about cancelling at least one of them, but I haven't done. I've kept them going. Oh, sorry, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. Doesn't necessarily help me. I'm still not familiar with that. For you, retail is for Smash, Smash and Classic for multiplayer. I mean, there will be more cooperation necessary. That can be a double-edged sword. It certainly encourages you to get into a guild and play with people you know, because people were still arseholes back then, you know. People would quite happily have you spend 2 hours getting a group together and getting to the dungeon and going through part of the dungeon and then not completing it because they would just bugger off for whatever reason. You know, I mean, it should not be forgotten. The sort of thing that used to happen to me a fair bit was you would spend the aforementioned probably an hour getting a group together, getting down to the dungeon. You'd get in, maybe clear a couple of groups, and then someone would say, oh, sorry, dinner's ready, and piss off. It's like, what? What are you doing? And, you know, it was not easy to get a replacement because you'd have to have someone go back. If you were lucky, you might have had a warlock and a mage in the group, in which case you might get the mage to go back to Ironforge, try and find someone, and then get a summon on the go. But you couldn't be an arsehole with impunity back then. I mean, you could get yourself a name on the server, but low-level arseholery you could absolutely get away with. Because, like, take the number of people that used to pull that trick where they wouldn't complete to the dungeon. They would just say, oh, I ain't got time. It's like, well, don't join a dungeon. You know it takes several hours. Though, you wouldn't get those, you wouldn't, you know, expose those all over. What would you do? That would be very petty, wouldn't it, for someone doing that? That level of behaviour would absolutely go under the radar. You had to do something like ninja loot to get yourself a reputation. Not sure if I mentioned the new Deathwing mount. Yes, we had a little look at that. But I was noting, although, it looks very much like Deathwing. Well, I suppose it is. He doesn't seem to have the adamantite faceplate. It just looks like his normal head. But he has got the adamantite plates on his body, which I thought was a bit curious. I mean, he has got some on his horns, but he hasn't got them on his jaw. So I'm not quite sure about. Unless it's just the way it looks, but it looks like, I don't know, it does looks like it's dragon scale. So it looks a bit weird to me. So it's Blackwing Son faceplate. You never did dungeons back then, like you don't do raiding these days unless in a raid group. What's the point? Were orcs always brown? Isn't that a BC retcon? No. It was all part of the story. They were originally brown. And it was the blood of Manaroth that turned them green. That wasn't something that came from Burning Crusade. I don't know when it came in. I mean, it wasn't mentioned in Warcraft 1. I can't remember. I mean, Warcraft 2 probably introduced them, but I can't specifically remember that. But that's what introduced the idea of the portals. Were Magar orcs in Classic? No, because they were on Draenor, which is not where we were. So, only the green orcs came through the portal. As far as I remember. Well, no, that's not true, is it? Is it? Duratan, sorry, came through, but he was dead. So by the time, when would this be? Demon blood orcs only had red eyes. They introduced the African orcs. Oh dear. In BC, no sooner. No, but the whole point was that they were brown before the drinking the blood of Manaroth. They weren't in the game, but it was alluded to in books, I'm pretty sure. I would have to double check. Now, all the orcs in Warcraft 3 were ones who drunk the blood of Manaroth, though, surely. I'd have to check. I'd have to double check. I'm pretty sure it was not a retcon in TBC, though. Because it didn't come as any surprise to me that there were brown orcs in TBC. And I think it would have been. I would have remembered surely querying that. The orcs with red eyes. Now, okay, no. So what happened was they had red eyes which disappeared when Manaroth was killed. I think. That was what Grom was referring to about the blood haze lifting, wasn't it? You mean the Red Fountain? Don't you mean more blood of Manaroth? Because in Warcraft 3 what happened is Manaroth, the orcs are basically broken free of his control. So whoever, one of the Nathrazim, I think it was, suggested that Manaroth get busy with his blood again, which he did, which drew Grom to him again, and the other orcs, and these orcs. Is, what is it, the Hell Song? War, no. War Song. Can't remember that. What's the name of his clan? Anyway, War Song, I think it was. That attracted them back again. And then Thrall said how disappointed he was with him, and Grom went, I'm sorry. And then they went off to hunt Manaroth and killed him. I'll say, well, Grom killed him anyway. Evening, Sin. You like the Blackrock orcs, Percy? They're not even Draenor. No, they are. So apparently Blizzard, what Blizzard tried to say here is, so they are from Draenor, and they were called the Blackrock clan. And when they came to Azeroth, they happened to settle at Blackrock Mountain. And this was a huge coincidence, apparently. You know, officially the line is that it's a coincidence. If you can believe that. Obviously, the reality is that, you know, yeah, it was Warsong, I thought it was. The reality is that, you know, they were Warcraft 1 had very little story. They were just making a game. Warcraft 2 put a bit more story into it, but they haven't really thought the whole thing through. You know, so by the time they started to think the whole thing through, it's like, oh, all right, yeah. And it didn't make sense, obviously, for the Blackrock clan to have been a something else clan, moved to Blackrock Mountain and decided to then call themselves Blackrock clan, because that's the other way they could have gone around it, I suppose. So Blackrock clan were on Draenor. You know, where they were led by Blackhand and who was called that because something to do with the hammer, wasn't it? Anyway, they could have named the mountain after their clan. They could have done, but they didn't. It was called Blackrock Mountain before the orcs got there. That is not denied. So yeah, they could have done. It could be that it was called Blackrock, but then every other race would have had to have called it something different. But they didn't. Blizzard didn't try and pretend. They just said, yeah, it's Blackrock Mountain, and there's Blackrock orcs there, and they were Blackrock orcs on Draenor as well, and it's just a coincidence. They didn't even try and say that the Blackrock orcs came to Azeroth and went, oh, where should we settle? Oh, our scouts tell us of this mountain that's called Blackrock Mountain. It's a sign. We should go and live there. They could have at least done that. But no, didn't even do that. So, were Blackrock orcs literally black? No, they weren't black. Well, I mean, I don't think the orcs are black even now at Blackrock Mountain. They were just called Blackrock. I mean, the black precedes the word rock. It suggests that on Draenor, they also had dealings with Blackrock. Maybe they lived near volcanoes or something. Yes, greyish. Darker skinned. Before they drank the blood. I'm now beyond the limits of my memory on the issue. You think once Blizz underestimated is the power of social engagement and cohesion of guilds and friendship, providing content for those unique experiences in a group to progress. I don't agree with that. I don't think they did. I think if they'd have tried, I know you will say because you like that, and a lot of people do. If they'd have tried to stick to that, the game would have died out a long time ago. I'm absolutely convinced they didn't. Blizzard did not change the entire MMO community landscape. To say that them changing the game to a more casual style drove away more hardcore players and introduced casual players, when those same types of player expect those same things from other MMOs, is to suggest that Blizzard created that in every PC player. No, I think the gamers changed. And the games had to adapt to that change. That's what really happened. So Blizzard don't underestimate those things. They just, I think you overestimate how many people appreciate them. Not enough people appreciate them. It's the same in society. The whole thing is reflected in society. I say hello every now and then to my neighbours when I see them, on the rare occasions I do. I couldn't tell you what they're called. No idea. Royal Mail, idiots, right, tried to deliver things when I wasn't in yesterday, and rather than put it in my safe space, which I told them about, they delivered it to neighbours, different neighbours across the street. So I went over and collected it from them last week. In fact, one of them even brought it to me. So they're very friendly people. I just don't know them. It's the same in society in general. We are less community-minded in ourselves in this sort of millennial generation. Even I'm not a millennial, but, you know, I mean, that we are more like that. We are more individual and private and hermits, really, in our own communities. It's just reflected in the games as well. But anyway. What? Pretty sure Thor gifted it to Thrall after... what? What's he Are you talking about the hammer? The hammer he got from Orgrim, because Orgrim, when he was... hold on, no. Was Orgrim... Orgrim Doomhammer gave it to Thrall after he was defeated. And when he'd grown up, you know, he said, here you go. You have this. Because he knew his father. A bit like in the film, except in the film, Orgrim was a frost wolf, whereas in reality, he was a Blackrock. Pally question, if you stacked massive amounts of hate, how much hate is necessary? Sim. The answer, unfortunately, in the game these days, I say unfortunately, I don't know why it's really easy to do, is there isn't a haste value you want. I still know that. That's still true. There isn't a haste value you want. What you want is, when you look at your gear, is what is the best combination of this gear that I can put on. And for that, you need to sim it on Raidbots 2.0. Now Doomhammer is sitting on the Shaman bank doing no. Exactly, yeah. Yeah. An end to a legendary weapon, exactly. And in fact, much depleted of its power, because we had to use it on that sword. Which is still there. Didn't actually seem to do anything to the sword. Think Thrall will steal Doomhammer back? We can, but it's just a big hammer now, isn't it? It's no longer the weapon of legend, is it? It's just an ordinary magic hammer. He can just get himself another magic hammer. He might as well join a raid group and get himself a better one, in fact. Have I? Yes, yeah, people keep saying about the Deathwing mount. And I keep saying, every time someone mentions it, where's his faceplate? I want to know where his faceplate is. So... the mouse, the pet looks quite interesting as well. The little pet with the scully, the big horns on its head. Thrall will join the Guardians of the Galaxy and get Stormbreaker. A certain Marvel told you, did they? I think Marvel might have lied then. Sucks when you have a character at 100, you use any of the artifact weapons. You can't use any of the artifact weapons power, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's going back to this idea of them invalidating content when a new expansion comes out. It could not be more stark than in Legion, where they literally did that. They completely removed the whole structure of the Legion expansion. So, have I seen the stills of fully rendered cinematic Thrall? No. I'm pretty sure I can wait. Where would it even be? I can wait. It's fine. But anyway, on that note, I will leave it there. We've had another good discussion. As I said, just as a reminder, so from next, I will be streaming, probably tomorrow actually, because I'm going to be playing Baldur's Gate anyway, so I'll stream some Baldur's Gate. But from next week, I will still be streaming between 7 and 9 on Tuesdays, but I will stream games, and we can talk about this, we can talk about whatever. But I just worry that there's going to come a point, and it hasn't happened so far, and I'm amazed at this, but there's going to come a point where I'll be there, and you'll be all talking World of Warcraft to me, and I'll be going, right, beyond not really knowing enough, I won't know anything. So I'm going to call it before it ends there. But yeah, I'll still be on every Tuesday, 7 to 9. It'll just be game streams instead. So that'll be the pattern for now. So thank you very much anyway, and until next time, have a good night, and I'll see you later.